Salam TITB. Jumpa lagi di One Wealth Outlook, market update minggu kedua April 2021. Saya Ahmad Enver bersama rekan kami Bapak William Wiranto sebagai ekonomis dari OCBC Group siap memberikan informasi dan analisa pasar terkini, global, dan domestik untuk membantu Anda memilih strategi investasi terbaik. Hi William, good morning and thank you so much for joining us on One Wealth Outlook.
Good morning, Amber. Thank you for having me on board.
Let's start with global. Inflationary pressure has been the key theme for the first quarter of this year, when in fact inflation is so benign globally. Maybe could you help us understand on how does this inflationary narratives comes about, and whether or not you think that this inflationary theme will continue to be the key story for 2021?
Sure, on the first question, Amber, I can really think of three interlinked factors. Ultimately, they're all related to one thing. In Bahasa, we would say biang keladi, and biang keladi, in this case, the ultimate culprit is really the pandemic. It causes factor number one, which is really arithmetic. Inflation is obviously measured in year-on-year terms. Given that demand was so depressed because of pandemic last year, prices of goods were really low back then. So even if things just go back to normalcy slightly now, the inflation rate would go up because the base of comparison was so low. This will be especially true in commodity prices, for instance. Now, factor number two is supply, specifically how supply of goods and services have been lowered because of pandemic and because of lockdowns. Some factories might have shut down and the production might be crimped. So you might well be just missing one or two things, but you have to shut down the whole production. This is especially true when it comes to semiconductor. If you watch the news about how automakers have to shut down production because of shortage of chips, that's very true. So I think in terms of supply, the crunch is affecting inflation as well. Now, apart from that, there's really the big factor of demand and the return of growth. I think that's driving inflation too. My former employer, IMF, just upgraded global growth forecast from 5.5% to now 6% for this year. I think this is predicated on a few things, especially the return of demand for large economies such as US and China. So combine everything, low year-on-year base effect, lower supply, higher demand, and voila, you have inflation uptick.
So do you think that this inflationary theme will continue to be the key story then for this year?
Unfortunately, the main factors involved that I mentioned earlier would still be big players this year. Might not have a base effect that lasts throughout, just because after a while the comparative base would naturally ebb away. However, I think the supply crunch will start to probably be in, and the demand recovery would be continuing as well because of the pandemic becoming under better control. Now, don't get me wrong, growth is obviously a good thing, but I think beyond that, we also have to start thinking about inflationary impulse coming from some of these factors as well.
Okay. So there are several key factors that could play as market driver for the remainder of this year. For example, Biden just launched his mega $1.9 trillion stimulus, and is about to increase government spending worth about $2.25 trillion for infrastructure projects. And the Fed seems to remain largely dovish too, for as far as we're concerned. So how do you see these factors will affect the movement of asset classes, such as risky assets like stocks, as well as the safe assets, such as the US Treasuries and the US dollar?
I think on the stimulus side, these are big sums. So in normal times, large stimulus will help boost economy and hence the natural support for stock market. At this juncture, it's slightly more complicated because we have to pay attention as well to how the government is planning to fund the stimulus package. Yes, we paid from somewhere, especially on the 2.2 trillion infrastructure bill. Janet Yellen, the US Secretary of Treasury, have now been talking about raising the corporate tax rate from 21% to 28% to finance the stimulus. Now, there's still big questions as to whether you go up by that much or whether you go up to 25% that some politicians, including Democrats themselves, are talking about. But any tax increase obviously put a dent on corporate earnings and present headwind to those stocks with lofty valuations especially. Now, on the safe haven side, the fact that the Fed remains dovish, this has been anchored the short end of the US Treasury curve. But higher government spending, plus the fear that the Fed might be behind the curve, such that they have to tighten even more later on. This has pushed up yields for longer end of US Treasuries. A 10-year and 30-year especially have gone up quite considerably over the last few months, for instance. Now, in turn, because these yields have gone up, they've also increased the yield differential against the major sovereign bonds in other countries. So US dollar has also seen periods of strength to date.
Okay. Okay. So, do you mind me asking specifically, does OCBC Bank have any projections on where will the Fed funds rate, the U.S. Treasuries, as well as the U.S. dollar going to be by year end or the next 12 months?
Sure. Our team at OCBC Research is looking at baseline scenario when it comes to U.S. Treasury yields. We're looking at a continued uptick throughout the year. A 10-year yield, for instance, we expect the yields to pick up to 2% by end of this year and potentially bridge into post above 2% territory into next year and beyond. In terms of US dollar, our FX strategist Terence is looking at general environment US dollar strength throughout the year as well, with gains against other major currencies such as euro. Beyond that, into 2022, with some kind of normalization, should curb dollar strength again, especially if other regions such as Eurozone start to catch up in terms of growth, driven by vaccination rollout and all that. Now, when it comes to the ultimate question of Fed funds rate, our baseline still looks at unchanged. It stayed unchanged for this year, next year, and to 2023. This is partly predicated on the fact that the FOMC members themselves are talking down the prospect of Fed rate hike. But these are open questions that we talked about earlier. So at least for this year, we don't expect it to change. But 2022 and 2023 are probably a higher chance of things moving along.
Okay. Okay. So that's where we are at global sides. Now let's move to Indonesia. How does these global events, as we have discussed earlier, such as the inflationary pressure, the various positive US data, as well as the US policies, could affect Indonesian assets like the JCI, the Indonesian government bonds, as well as the rupiah?
Now, the global environment that we talked about earlier, I think we can summarize with one word: unsettled. It's unsettled because of all these open questions regarding how strong inflation will be, whether the Fed will act or not act. So hence, I think volatility is likely to be a theme throughout this year. Now, going back to Indonesia, Indonesia still has a current account deficit. Yes, it has narrowed, but we unfortunately still have that deficit, which means we remain dependent on external funds to finance our investment needs, etc. So because global environment is volatile, the funding flow would in turn also remain volatile, i.e. subjected to outflow risk. So even though we do see positive stuff about Indonesia's longer-term economic fundamentals, also positive for longer-term asset prices across the board for Indonesia, things are unlikely to be as smooth sailing as before. The rupiah, for instance, might see some short-term weakness, I think, because of all this uncertainty. But do note, we're not looking for any kind of big move, probably baseline move towards closer to 14,750, 14,800 in the coming months, probably make a lot of sense.
Okay. Okay. So let me go a little bit more specific into that numbers. Currently, the Indonesian government bonds, the 10-year yield has risen over 58 basis points. I think it was last Friday, while the rupiah has just surpassed the 14,500 level once again. Where do you see these assets will move within the next 1 year? And what are the positive or negative catalyst drivers that investors should anticipate going forward?
So I think global factors, like I said earlier, will continue to dominate, including the strength of US economic recovery. Domestic factors will probably play a part too. On the not so good side, if COVID cases continue to fester unchecked or vaccination rollout hits a major roadblock for whatever reason, it is obviously not so good for us and not so good for asset prices. On top of that, you do have some unresolved questions regarding the BI amendment to BI law. So I think that's an overhang. On the positive side, back on the COVID fight, we continue to hope that vaccination rollout we can continue to take place more rapidly from here. I think some of the initiatives, including 20 million doses to be imported by Kadin, the Chamber of Commerce, I think involving major corporations, should speed things up. So it helps to put the lid on COVID cases. Life can get back to some kind of normalcy, and because of that, I think the asset prices should enjoy some support at least. Let's not forget as well, when it comes to say rupiah movement, like I mentioned earlier, we don't expect big movement. We should stay contained below 15,000 levels, partly because Bank Indonesia has been prudent in building up lots and lots of foreign reserves, and I think it's been reaching record high in the last few months. Save the very last one.
Okay. Okay. It's interesting that you mentioned Bank Indonesia earlier. Next week, we will be having the BI meeting for April. What is your call, and where will BI rate stands by the end of 2021? And maybe could you help us share a light on how this BI rate will affect the impact on our yield differentials? Okay.
On the questions of BI, Enver, I think the rate cut cycle, the easing cycle, is largely over by now. Bank Indonesia's cut of 25 bips to record low 3.5%, and a few months ago, probably the last of the cycle. And the need to support growth is still there given the headwinds, but arguably the space for BI to move further on policy rate is very limited by virtue of them, having cut so much last year and early this year, and also by the fact that global yields environment, like I said earlier, very unsettled, and the need to preserve yield differential is still there. Granted that yield differential probably for Indonesia is among the highest in the region, but again, putting that in context of the funding needs of the government and some of the slower growth momentum coming through, I think by and large, BI still has to maintain policy rate just to preserve that yield differential.
Okay. Q1 has just passed, and our Ministry of Finance stressed that growth could still be in the negative territory. What is your forecast for Indonesia growth this year, and what would be the key driver?
Well, we are still hopeful for growth to come in just shy of 5%, about 4.8, 4.9% this year. A lot of this depends on how the Q1 number came out. I think earlier we thought we might be able to see some very slight positive growth, but it looks like we'll probably be at the flip side of it given the considerations and some of the higher frequency indicators performing subpar. So overall, we're still hopeful for this kind of 4.8, 4.9% growth, but a lot would depend on how the economy would perform in the second half. On one hand, we do have some uplift from exports, including commodities. On the other hand, I think consumption uplift has been quite poor at this point. We do have a few what do you call it, headwinds ahead until we get the pandemic under control, until the vaccination rollout continues to be picking up pace. Unfortunately, I think until then, consumption will still be quite curtailed.
Okay. Now we are reaching to our last question, William. What does it mean for you now that BHI, Bank Indonesia has more holdings growth compared to foreign ownership? Should we worry that BHI has more holdings now while foreign remains net outflows?
I think in some respect it's pure numbers, but it's numbers that speak volumes in the sense that, BI has obviously played an outsized role in supporting the government bond market since the pandemic hit us starting from April last year. And I think this year they're likely to continue to play a major role in supporting, say, either the primary auction stage directly or in the green shoe option the day or two after. I think by and large we see that happening. So the question now is as and when this support is no longer there by the end of this year, can the global markets, together with some of the domestic players, support any kind of uptick in supply from government bonds? That remains an open question. So more than any number, in terms of who owns what and how many percent is owned by the BI side or the foreign side, we really look for the return of appetite of global players. I think the fact of the matter is that the auction has been quite poor in the last few runs. Hopefully things turn around, partly when global sentiment starts to improve again, flows to emerging markets start to improve again. And again, because of the high yield differential that Indonesia still does have, we should see a resumption of this flow coming back to support the government bonds market, without the full sort of strength of support from BI being needed anymore.
That will close our session today, William. Thank you so much for joining us. We can't wait to see you in our next many more episodes to come.
Thank you. Hopefully soon in physical form rather than virtual. Thank you.
Sekian informasi dan analisis kali ini bersama Bapak William selaku ekonomis dari OCBC Group. Untuk mengikuti update pasar terkini, Anda dapat mengakses weekly market journal kami melalui link di bawah ini. Dan jangan lupa untuk memfollow kami dengan mengklik tombol subscribe. Saya Ahmad Enver, nantikan Mon Wealth Outlook berikutnya di minggu depan. Salam TITB.